Hello everyone, I'm Salad, and as promised, today we're going to be watching all of the lore terminal things that were in Halo Combat Evolved and in Halo 2 for the anniversary versions. We've already watched a few of them just from playing through the game, but I know that I have definitely missed quite a few of them. It seems like there are a total of 11 in Halo CE, at least going by the playlist that I have here. You guys can let me know if I end up skipping any, and I will go back and be sure to watch those. Hopefully, these will be giving us a little bit more backstory on the Covenant and how they work in the Halo stations and maybe the Forerunners as well. That kind of information I really like, and I'm excited to see what this has for us. So let's just start it up. I don't know if this first one is one I've seen before, but we're gonna find out. So let's start it up. Okay, we got a date. I don't know what format that's in.
Warning! By order of Ecumen Council, proximity to Installation 04 is forbidden.
Installation 04 is a Halo station. I think the first one we destroyed. Hold up. I'm gonna see if we can get some subtitles here. Here we go. Oh, it's auto-generated. That's probably not gonna work too well. We'll stick without subtitles. I'm just gonna try to figure out what they're saying. I may pause every now and then to give my thoughts. It's good that I'm able to pause it, like I don't think you could in game.
That you immediately change course and return to a minimum safe distance of 1 light year. This has served as your one and final warning.
1 light year is the minimum distance away from the Halo station. It's safe.
Defensive systems, and you now have 30 seconds to return to the minimum safe distance of. Wait. Curious.
Oh, it's scanning the Pillar of Autumn. That's the ship that we were on in Halo CE, I believe.
Curious indeed, after all these years. Greetings, humans, and welcome to Installation 04.
After all these years?
Fire warnings, and please continue.
Huh.
I have disabled defensive systems to allow your approach, but you must not exit your ship once you have arrived at the designated landing center.
Interesting.
This contains significant dangers, and even with your assumed legacy, I must verify the presence and pitch of your gauge before allowing full access.
Your assumed legacy. Were the Forerunners humans?
I have been away far too long. You have been away far too long.
Oh. Yeah, so that was very interesting. I'm gonna pause it here before we go on to the next one. I think at the very start of that, let me go back. He said something about the Ecumen Council or something. Let me hear that again.
Warning! By order of Ecumen Council.
Yeah, by the order of Ecumen Council. I don't know what that means. But I guess that was a Forerunner Council that decided all the directives that this monitor was to follow in order to prevent people from going to the Halo station and all of its orders to blow up the Halo station or activate it if the flood ever got out. But that was a really important cutscene, so I'm really glad I went back and watched these. It sounds like the Forerunners, the people who built the Halo station, and I assume the monitor as well, were humans or precursors or ancestors to humans, or maybe humans were part of the Forerunners group. Just like how the Covenant is made of multiple different life forms, perhaps the Forerunners were also a similar way, and humans were part of that. I'm gonna assume though for right now that the Forerunners were humans. That's really interesting. There was no indication of that anywhere else in the game, so it's very good that we're getting that information here. Now, I'm not sure what the implications are going to be of that just yet, but it's interesting that the monitor, I don't believe the monitor mentioned that information in Halo CE, and we hung out with the monitor for quite a while, just going through the facility. Although the monitor did say quite a lot, so it's possible that the monitor did mention something about that, and I just overlooked it because it rambles a lot. It's a very talkative thing, the monitor. So yeah, that was fascinating. So I guess the monitor specifically let our ship in towards the Halo station. But what about the Covenant ships? That's what interests me. It turned off all of Halo's defenses so that the Pillar of Autumn, which was the ship we were on in Halo CE, if I recall, it allowed that through. But what about the Covenant ships? Did it fire on them? Did it just let them pass through because they thought the monitor thought they were with us? I'm not sure what that was about. My memory could be kind of hazy on what happened exactly in Halo C. Maybe they were fired upon, but that's interesting. All right, let's move on to the next one. Another date, 3/9/12/6. Can't tell if it's a later date. I assume it is.
I am experiencing such a mixture of anticipation and dread. All preparations are complete for my installation. In accordance with the final dictum of the Ecumene Council, I have released myself of all remaining connections to my former station.
Your former station, huh?
This was not difficult. What was could never be again. We had seen to that quite thoroughly. Prior to my final journey...
Oh, we've seen this one before.
A gathering of my fellow monitors was convened upon the Lightworkers Crash to distribute the final index collection.
I wonder if we'll ever see one of them. One of the other monitors. The final index collection. Those are the...
It was most unusual.
One moment. Let me disable Discord so that doesn't interrupt us. Alright. I moved it back a little bit. Yeah, so I wonder if we're ever going to see one of these other monitors. Probably will.
It was most unusual to have this vessel of rebirth play host to such an event.
Vessel of rebirth.
Lightworker ships were the only ones still allowed slip space permissions. Lightworkers were responsible.
I'm gonna have to replay this a few times. I might check and see if there is a version of this with subtitles, because it's kind of hard to understand what the monitor is saying. But for now, I'm just going to keep replaying so that I can make sure I understand everything that the monitor is saying. He speaks kind of fast, and says big words like Ecumene Council or something.
Even though Lightworker ships were the only ones
Live worker ships
still allowed slip space permissions.
were the only ones allowed slip space permissions. Worker ships. So there was in Halo 2, there was a Forerunner ship. Is that a worker ship? One of the ones that were still given permissions for slip space to get out of there?
Lightworkers were responsible for getting us to our places on the active facilities of the array.
So there were workers that were meant to bring these monitors over to their Halo stations? Is that what he's saying?
While all of this was in accordance with the plan, one entirely unsatisfactory breakdown remained. We had no contact with the domain.
The domain? What is the domain?
The history of all Forerunners was now lost to us. We relied upon the permanence of the domain to preserve our record of the events that led to this point.
Yeah, I think I remember them talking about this last time we watched this cutscene. So there's a domain that's a record of, I guess, now that we know that the Forerunners are maybe human, past human history?
But without that record, would future civilizations know anything about us? Or only of our weapons? My fellow monitor, 049 Abject Testament, had only one comment on this before we went our separate ways.
We deserve to be forgotten.
Perhaps.
So interesting. So the monitor is referring to, when it's talking about human civilization, it says us. And these monitors, they're saying, we deserve to be forgotten. This makes me think that these monitors are actually human. Or they're actually vestiges of humans. Like they are human consciousness that were placed into these robots, these robotic floating thingies. That's what I'm understanding from it right now. So that's interesting. That explains why they have so much personality, if I'm understanding that correct.
Perhaps. But now, the portal opens, and through it, the familiar shape awaits.
Familiar shape.
Home.
Home. Interesting. Okay, yeah, we've seen that cutscene before, but it has a lot of information in it. So I'm glad that we're going back through it, and I'm able to pause and replay and re-listen to some of this stuff because there's a lot of really good information here.
Construct, who is your maker?
Construct, who's your maker?
Never made, but you are right here, where you should not be. Tell your charges to cease their efforts immediately. Quarantine must not be violated.
Quarantine must. So wait, this is like there's this consciousness thing that's coming from a Covenant ship. Is that what I'm getting here?
Sadness and disrepair.
Sadness, pain, and disrepair are the things that he spawned from, but he said he was never created. You are unworthy.
Never made, but
I
you
was
are
not
right
made.
here, where you should not be. Tell your charges to cease their efforts immediately. Quarantine must not be violated. Construct, respond.
Jumbled grasp. Familiar terms. I serve. None serve me, Oracle.
Your charges must.
I serve, none serve me. So is this construct trying to say that the Covenant don't follow his orders? It's a follower of the Covenant? What's going on here?
Cease all aggression towards the Reclaimers and leave this installation at once. Construct, you are dangerously close to unleashing a force you cannot comprehend.
Oh, yeah, the flood.
This is most inappropriate.
We follow the path, and I am part of the stone journey swarm that serves.
We follow the path. So is this construct a collection of consciousness or something? Let me hear what he said there again. He's speaking kind of vaguely.
We follow the path, and I am part of the stone journey swarm that
I am part of the stone journey. What?
swarm that serves.
The stone something swarm.
And I am part of the stone journey swarm that serves. We serve. They will find, and then I will be free.
Find? Free? Explain yourself.
They will find and then I will be free. So, if this the construct is talking about being free, is this construct the grave mind? That big flood worm thing that we saw in Halo 2? Is that what this is? What else would want to be free?
I know their path, and when they have gone, only I shall remain, and then free.
This is quite.
I know their path, and when they are gone, only I shall remain. Is this construct saying that it knows that the path of all of these life forms is just to die, and when all of these life forms are gone and dead, when the Halo station is activated, when everything else is dead, only this construct will remain and will be free to go and do whatever it wishes? So maybe this construct is the flood and is saying that the activation of the Halo station isn't a threat to it, and it actually wants that to clear out everything else for it? Or is this construct something else entirely?
Unsatisfactory construct. Your core shows no hint of understanding the gravity of this situation. I will return later for your proper decommissioning. Well, unless the flood kills us all first, in which case the point will be moot. Good day, construct.
Yeah, the monitor seems to be talking to that construct as if it's not part of the flood, so maybe it isn't. And it's saying that it could decommission it. So there's some sort of other AI life form, something or other, that wants to be free. Interesting. We never encountered anything like that in Halo CE or Halo 2. So I'm not sure what that was all about. Hopefully some of these other ones, these other terminals will clear that up.
Entropy. It has now been 3,000 years since my last contact with any of the other caretakers of the Halo array. Despite clear communications protocol.
1 second, how many years?
It has now been 3,000 years.
3,000 years, okay.
Contact with any of the other caretakers of the Halo array. Despite clear communications protocol, my fellow monitors have either chosen to ignore, or more likely, have lost the ability to engage in our scheduled updates. The continued lapse of the domain means that we are stuck with achingly slow wormhole superluminal communications.
The slow collapse of the domain? Is it so the domain, not only are they cut off from the information in the domain, is the domain itself collapsing?
The continued lapse of the domain means that we are stuck with achingly slow wormhole superluminal communications.
Achingly slow wormhole something or other communications. Okay, so they can't use the domain is what they're saying. So they have to use wormhole communication, which is slow. Okay.
Prior to this total communication shutdown, the only messages I received in the preceding 4,573 years were incomplete and quite perplexing transmissions from Installation 05.
So even before the 3,000 years that he hasn't had communication, in the previous 4,500 years, he just received communication from some specific station, and it was all strange. Let me hear that again.
Transmissions from I received in the preceding communication shutdown. The only messages I received in the preceding 4,573 years were incomplete and quite perplexing transmissions from Installation 05.
Yeah, number 5. So did we? Oh, I think the first Halo station that we ran into in Halo CE that was Halo Station 4. I don't remember if the next one we ran into in Halo 2 was Installation 5 or not. I'm not sure if it's going up and if it actually was number 5 or not.
I suspected that Monitor 2401 Penitent Tangent was not functioning correctly for some time before his messages ceased.
Okay, so one of the monitors is malfunctioning.
Concerns about his ability to perform his duties. At this point, however, I'm not sure who I file logs for. 2401 may be destined for madness. There are fail-safes for this, I know. I hope they work.
Interesting. Okay. I don't think we've seen this Halo Station 5 because we haven't found a monitor that has gone insane yet. I think that's going to be really entertaining. I'm actually excited to see that. This monitor that we've been talking to right now, I forget what his actual designation or name is, but the monitor that we've had contact with so far has been very entertaining. He's got a great personality. So it would be fascinating to see a monitor that has gone insane.
I will continue to visit the projection systems at the assigned dates. Perhaps the other monitors are dealing with interfering galactic phenomena or unexpected system failures. 3,000 years of system failures. Indeed.
Yeah, 3,000 years of system failures does not seem likely.
I have exhausted all scheduled research activities assigned by the Council. Once those experiments were complete, I shall...
Wait, he's still doing experiments?
In the meantime, I have exhausted all scheduled research activities assigned by the Council. Once those experiments were complete, I shut down all Sentinel function and put myself into a state of significant hibernation.
I see. So the Forerunners gave them some research to do, I guess maybe in the hopes that they would find some other way to stop the flood. I'm assuming that's the research that he was doing, because what else could be so important? So it sounds like these Halo stations were probably the Forerunners' last resort, but they also just gave these monitors the monitors obviously have thousands and thousands of years of time. You might as well have them do some research, try to come up with better solutions while they're just sitting there. So it sounds like that's what they did. But I think this monitor just finished the research and they didn't find anything from what it sounds like.
Measure performance of the installation with negligible upkeep.
And hibernation mode. Yep.
After 150 years with no noticeable impact upon installation systems or integrity, even in hibernation I became bored. This was quite troubling, as I was led to believe I was not capable of such a state. This was one of the gifts I was promised, an end to strife. I am aware of the dangers of a system such as myself losing operational focus. Quite troubling. I wonder if my fellow monitors are experiencing similar states, or if this is because of my particular path to this installation. For amusement, I have begun a series of experiments involving the evacuation of all matter from contained sections of my installation. By measuring the geologic effects of exposure to the vacuum of space and the eventual biological recovery of these sections, I anticipate getting valuable insight into emergency response scenarios in case of sentient proximity.
Wait, so this monitor was just ejecting part of its landmass into space to just see what happened, just because it was bored? That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, and then obviously we came and made things like a bit more exciting, I guess, for him. This poor monitor was bored, started to throw land masses and trees and plants into the vastness of space. Interesting. Okay. Not as much to say on that one though.
It has been 26 hours since the sentients landed in Sector 1215, and so far, they have not attempted to exit the remains of their vessel. I say remains because their landing was either not executed adequately, or this vessel lacked significant maneuvering capability. The visible portions of the vessel have suffered catastrophic structural damage during the violent landing experience.
Is that the Covenant ship?
I have detected atmospheric leaks in 17 distinct locations along the hull. My analysis shows that the mixture of gases coming from the ship matches the natural atmosphere on my installation almost exactly. Perhaps the occupants, if they still live, were originally cataloged here.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, the monitor is just commenting on the fact that the Covenants also breathe the same air as the Forerunners did. That's why they have the same atmospheric conditions.
Perhaps these beings will confirm that the plan was successful, and that the galaxy has returned to its proper cadence. I am beyond optimistic. But I do not understand why these sentients have not attempted to exit their vessel. Other than the leaking atmosphere, the only thing emanating from this wreckage is an automated distress call.
Interesting. What's this? Because that's like is that a Covenant? I'm pretty sure it's a Covenant ship, right? Or is that an old Forerunner ship that crashed with nobody on it? It's saying that nobody attempted to leave this ship, so this can't be from Halo CE. This can't be from Halo Combat Evolved, because obviously when the Pillar of Autumn, or when we came as the Master Chief, or when the Covenant came, we were leaving our ship, and the Covenant was leaving their ship, and all sorts of stuff was happening. So I'm not sure what this one is referring to, or what this one is about. For some reason, I'm getting... was this something that maybe we saw in... I'm trying to think if we saw something like this scene in Reach, but I'm thinking of a different scene. I'm thinking of this scene at the very end of Reach, where we just see the helmet there sitting in the middle of some planes like this with stuff, some sort of stuff in the background. I don't think that's this. I think this is something different. I'm wondering what's going on here.
I am currently translating this automated broadcast, but with such a limited data set and no direct communication, I do not anticipate full comprehension. Given the short-range nature of this craft, it is likely that other vessels are nearby. But, in accordance with procedure, I am blocking the distress call. No communication of the location of any installation is permissible. I admit great curiosity about these visitors. While the plan is quite clear about procedure for this situation, I have my doubts. How many failure points can the plan sustain before blind adherence becomes counterproductive? Surely, in light of all that has changed, I should be able to modify my responses to adapt it. No, I have duties.
Interesting. So the monitor is starting to question his own directives and is stopping himself. It sounds like this monitor is actually pretty sane. It's understands that it has the rules that it needs to follow, and when it tries to think about maybe circumventing those rules to make things better, it catches itself in the act and says, "Wait, no, I need to follow the same procedures. I have to make sure that I don't go insane like the monitor on Station 5 did. I need to make sure that I stay reliable." And this monitor is very concerned about staying reliable and continuing to do its job. And considering the fact that all the other monitors have not been communicating with it anymore, it seems like this monitor is one of the few that is actually continuing to carry on with his mission and continuing to be sane. It might be one of the more reasonable monitors out there, which is funny considering how it acted in Halo Combat Evolved, wanting to just blow up everything or activate the Halo station and kill everything. But it's actually probably the most logical monitor that still exists right now. So it sounds like this Covenant ship that landed here is not one that we've seen in the story. It's just a Covenant ship that just so happened to accidentally crash there, and everybody on it, I guess, was already dead. Is this before the Covenant first found the Halo stations? And because it was explained to me in a comment that some vague information was given to me about how one of the Covenant prophets arrived at a Halo station, and how some of their great journey lore came to be, and how they decided that activating the Halo station was their great journey. Is this a precursor to that, or is this much after that and it's just a random Covenant ship that just so happened to stumble in here? I don't know. I don't think it matters too much, but let's see where else this goes.
I have a terrible cargo here. I must be sure. I shall obey and content myself to monitor. I hope they come out soon, though. So many questions to ask. So many questions.
Yeah, poor monitor is getting bored. It's continuing to do its job dutifully, but that explains also why it was so eager to open up the doors when it saw the Pillar of Autumn coming over. It was like, wait, no, this is a Forerunner or this is one of our descendants' ship or something like that. And it was really excited to go in, finally meet with somebody and talk to somebody. And that also explains why he's so talkative when we meet him. It's just bored after so many thousands of years. It makes sense. A lot of this explains everything.
Construction of the sarcophagus around the unexplained vessel was completed today. No occupants ever exited. No attempts to communicate were made, other than the automated broadcast that repeated every 72.83 seconds until the signal terminated 1 week ago.
So sad, nobody to talk to.
No attempts at physical or remote contact were made with any survivors of this vessel's inelegant landing. Atmosphere from inside the craft stopped venting 2 weeks before the signal ceased. No relationship between these two events can be established with certainty. Gases that did escape were sterilized. No further sign of alien visitors or rescuers has been identified on any sensor systems. I have now endured 60,000 years without word from outside the array.
60,000 years. Wow. Okay. So that's much bigger than some of the other numbers that he was quoting before, with the amount of time that has been since he was last in contact with other monitors, for example. 60,000 years. Okay.
I have no way to know whether we actually saved the galaxy we destroyed. And because of protocol, I sat silently while my first chance to be judged for those acts died. To say that I regret being forced to this outcome is a tremendous understatement.
The galaxy that we destroyed, is the monitor talking about? Did they activate? Is it talking about the first time they activated the Halo stations? They activated it sometime even more than 60,000 years ago, and basically destroyed most of the life in the galaxy. And okay, I think that's what it's talking about right now, when it's talking about just how they destroyed the galaxy and he wants to be judged for it.
But as said before my inspection of the quarantine labs today, I am reminded of the gravity of my responsibilities. Just one of these spores, if released from this facility, would render the ultimate judgment against our self-appointed role as protectors of this galaxy. When the plan to maintain the Halo...
Yeah, it would render the ultimate judgment. It would make everything that they did completely pointless. If the Flood ends up escaping again, then the sacrifice that they chose to make, the hard decision that they chose to make to activate all the Halo stations and kill everything, it would have been for nothing if any of these escape. Which makes me wonder why they're even keeping these spores in this Flood parasite. Why are they still keeping it at the Halo station? I get that initially it was for research, but the monitor already finished all of its research. It went through all the research that the Forerunners gave it to complete, and now it's done. Why doesn't it also have a directive to eradicate these spores from its little stasis chamber that it has here? I don't know.
The array was created. It was a point of some contention whether we should preserve any remnant of the Flood infection.
Okay, so it's addressing this.
Many thought this unwise, as there was a notable chance that one day one of our containment facilities might be breached. Those who held this belief were almost successful at convincing the Ecumen Council to destroy the last Flood samples. But oddly enough, it was the librarian who decided otherwise.
The librarian?
And I believe she was correct. I know in a way I cannot logically explain that there exists a way to actually defeat the Flood. To immunize, to cure. I still struggle with multiple layers of memory of fighting the Flood. But I know this cure is possible, even though the full genius of the Forerunners was unable to achieve it.
Interesting.
The Forerunner's ancient enemy held and used that knowledge once, but it was denied to us. And without...
The Forerunner's ancient enemy held and used that knowledge once. So that's interesting. The monitor is saying that the Forerunners had an enemy of their own, just like how humans have an enemy of the Covenant as an enemy. So there was some sort of antagonist to the Forerunners that already had a cure to the Flood. That's interesting. I still think that the librarian was wrong, though. Even if there does maybe exist a way to cure the Flood, why would that matter? Why would you? I mean, I get maybe the librarian would want to keep things cataloged. You know, they're a librarian. They want to keep some record of things. So maybe that's why they want to keep the Flood around, just to have specimens to study. But why would you take that risk? I don't see what the benefit is. In order to make a decision like that, there would have to be some benefit to curing the Flood rather than just eradicating it completely. And I don't see exactly what the benefit would be yet, unless the Flood are useful somehow, maybe for treating injuries or getting eternal life or something like that. That's what I would assume, since the Flood seems to revive people. It was My guess, my best guess would be that the flood was created as some sort of method to heal or prolong life. That's just a vague guess. We don't have anything to suggest that, but usually these kinds of things in stories would be created because of things like that. So that's what I'm gonna go for now, as my thoughts.
Samples for further study. That cure will never again be found. Of course, I have no reason to believe that here lies the entirety of the parasite. It may be waiting in the frozen void beyond this galaxy. Oh.
Yeah, that's also true. It's very possible that the flood still exists in, for example, there was that flood worm that we ran into in Halo 2. I'm I'm still not totally clear on where that flood worm came from. I assume that it was living on the Forerunner's ship, and maybe that was outside of the radius outside of the kill zone of the Halo stations. And like this monitor said, there's possibly other flood parasites that are living outside of the radius of these Halo stations. So that's very true. I think that actually makes a lot of sense. Why they would want to keep some of these specimens alive, so that they could continue to be researched and continue to try to find a way to find a cure. Because if you don't do that, then that still doesn't solve everything, because there's still a definite possibility, like this monitor is saying, that the flood exists elsewhere and it's not completely eradicated even if you get rid of these specimens. So maybe that really is the final solution that needs to happen, is we need to find a cure for the flood. And since there has been a cure found before, there's a lot of hope there. So very interesting. Let's continue.
Inexorably drifting toward us. I don't know what survives out beyond my installation, but I know that in order for anything to survive, I have to protect this installation and its quarantine very carefully.
Very true.
The library was right to store it, examine it, continue to seek a cure. Still, next visitor, things will be different.
Next visitor, things will be different? Does it mean that the next visitor, things will be different? The monitor definitely wants them to survive the landing and get to talk with them? That's why it ended up letting the Covenant ships through as well? Maybe.
Alone.
Yep.
Am I the only intelligence left?
Getting bored.
Waiting here on this ring for a rebirth never truly conceived. Guarding a weapon with...
And he keeps flashing, it keeps flashing red. I don't think we've ever seen that happen in Halo C or Halo 2. Is that a sign of him going insane? Just like the one on Halo, the 5th Halo station did? I don't know.
Truly conceived. Guarding a weapon with no targets. A weapon I could tune to any target. This is not what I had in mind when I volunteered. Not what I had in mind at all. I was naive to think I understood what this installation meant. We were all so naive. Looking back, we should have done a few things differently. For one thing, we should have installed 2 caretakers per installation.
That makes a lot of sense. Companionship.
Because I am alone, I'm losing focus. And that is very, very dangerous for a system such as myself. Perhaps a visit to the nearby gas giant is in order. My impulse drives could certainly make the journey. A few hundred years of travel might do me some good.
But then you'd leave the station unattended.
How very unproductive of me. It seems strange that the librarian did not account for this. Her strength was always in planning and positioning the pieces and then being bold enough to let it happen. To let her plans come true.
Well, perhaps there's also disadvantages to having multiple monitors per station, because although it would have relieved boredom, what if the monitors got in a fight? If they're continuing to deteriorate or erode like this one currently is, then they could easily have fights and maybe end up destroying parts of the Halo station or activating the Halo station or letting the flood out. You never know. Adding more monitors just increases the number of variables. It doesn't necessarily make it any better. So I think there's probably no perfect plan that could have been implemented that would have safeguarded against every problem that could have happened. So one monitor or two monitors, both approaches would have had problems.
I was a part of many of those plans long before I knew for certain that she was real, before any of us were. But at the end, we had only a fragment of her brilliance left to us.
Knew that she was real? What? What is he trying to say there?
I was a part of many of those plans long before I knew for certain that she was real.
Long before I knew for certain that she was real? The librarian?
It seems strange that the librarian did not account for this. Her strength was always in planning and positioning the pieces and then being bold enough to let it happen. To let her plans come true. I was a part of many of those plans long before I knew for certain that she was real, before any of us were. But at the end, we had only a fragment of her brilliance left to us. And I fear that she did not fully appreciate the nature of my situation here. The problems it might pose.
Only had a fragment of her brilliance left. Was the librarian not human? Was the librarian a AI? I mean, that would make sense. What would be make the best librarian? Something that knows where all the books are, knows all the information. It sounds like something that would be perfect for an AI to have the job of. So maybe the librarian is like a Metroid Prime 3 style mothership AI type of thing that has all sorts of plans and information and knows how things are going to play out. For such an advanced civilization like the Forerunners were, I wouldn't put it past them for the librarian to be something like that.
But even a fragment, yes.
Uh-oh.
Dear, here it comes again.
Monitor's going crazy. All right.
$25,000 light years. That is the effective range of this installation.
25,000 light years, but hold on. In a previous one of these terminals, it was saying something about 1 light year being like a safe distance for some sort of ship. I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and see what it was talking about there. I don't think it's too important, but it seems to be mixing up the distances here. But yeah, 25. Okay, so that's quite a long range.
According to the star charts archived on board this installation, I estimate that there are 3,792 worlds capable of sustaining biological sentient life within that 25,000 light-year range. In reality, it may be significantly more than that. And if the full array was tuned and activated by Installation 00, the harmonics of the overlapping waves would magnify that effect exponentially.
Oh.
To cover every known star system.
Interesting. Okay, so not only are these Halo stations powerful by themselves, if you activate them all at once, which in Halo 2, something happened to link them. I don't remember exactly what, but I know that they're all linked now, and they could all be activated simultaneously, which is even worse now. So it sounds like if you activate all of them at once, like things are set up to do now after Halo 2, it could wipe out all known solar systems, or whatever it is he just said. So that's even worse, as if it wasn't things weren't bad enough already.
And that only considers the firing of a mere 7 halos. Had the original 12 rings survived to see use, sterilization would spread far further than most Forerunners ever feared we could reach.
Wait, but didn't they activate the Halo stations initially? I was under the impression that the Forerunners activated the Halo stations And then these monitors were placed there to watch over the remaining samples. And then life came back to the galaxy, and that's where the humanity came from. That's where the Covenant came from. I was under that impression. So did the Forerunners never activate all of the Halo stations? Did they only activate some of them? Well, what's that about?
But even with just 7 rings, we were able to destroy every side of the flood.
Okay, so there were originally 12, but some of them got destroyed even before the Master Chief and the Covenant arrived. So interesting. So did maybe the Flood mounted their own resistance against the Halo rings in their construction? That makes a lot of sense considering certain members of the Flood, like the Gravemind, which was the giant floodworm thing, that had plenty of intelligence to know to go and destroy these Halo stations. So they probably directly attacked some of them, and that's why only 7 of them were activated. Okay, that answers my questions.
And every other sentient creature along with it. This victory was the will of our
Sterilized.
people, despite the fact that it meant our own end as well. But by our Pyrrhic measurement, it was a victory and cleared the stage for the rest of the librarian's plan. I sometimes wonder whether the Didact could have succeeded at a much smaller cost. I learned the folly of opposing him personally, and his brilliance was unsurpassed.
Wait. You know the folly of what?
At a much smaller cost. I learned the folly of opposing him personally, and his brilliance was unsurpassed.
I know the folly of opposing him personally. I don't think he's talking about the librarian there, because the monitor kept referring to the librarian as her.
And cleared the stage for the rest of the librarian's plan. I sometimes wonder whether the Didact could have succeeded at a much smaller cost. I learned the folly of opposing him personally, and his brilliance was unsurpassed. Except...
So it sounds like they're talking about the librarian there, but the monitor's saying him now, and it used to refer to the librarian as her. I don't know if it's still trying to refer to the librarian. Maybe I'm just mishearing that. It's very possible. But, interesting.
Perhaps by her own. He never got the chance to fully execute his proposal. The Council saw to that. But if something were to go wrong with one of the Halos, if our tools were ever turned against us. Long plans, indeed.
Yep, and things are definitely going to continue to go wrong with the Halo stations. It's looking like the Flood's already unleashed.
Something. What did my name? I forgot. Oh, Keys, Jacob, Captain, service number 01928-19912-JK. What is that noise? What is that damn noise?
Yeah. Keys did not meet a good end in Halo C, not at all. If I recall, one of my commenters said that he was going to be turned into a floodworm, a Gravemind.
I can't remember. Keys, Jacob.
Or he was being devoured by one.
Oh, God, it hurts. This will never work, you Covenant bastards.
Yikes.
Never lead you to Earth. Keys, Jacob, Captain. Service number 01928.
What a disturbing cutscene.
-JK. Oh, God. You don't want Earth. You want everything. Get out of my head. Miranda, is that you?
Forget everything.
No, please. Don't let me forget. Keys. Jacob. Captain. Service number 1998-19912-J.
No more what you were. Memories. Emotions. All is now ours.
All is now ours, huh? It's trying to consume everything.
Jacob. Captain. Service number 01928-19912-JK. You will not have me.
We already do.
Yeah. It consumed him until we had to smash his face in to put him out of his misery. Jeez, man, that was a that was a really disturbing cutscene. Really well done though. They did a great job in that one of portraying the struggle that Keyes was in and the pain that he was in through all the visuals, the sounds, him continuing to repeat his name and service number to try to keep himself focused, to keep himself himself. And yeah, that was quite a scene. Definitely not yeah. Definitely don't want to watch that one again, but that was creepy. That was good. Very well done.
Vexation. 100,000 years of careful maintenance and diligence. 100,000 years protecting the galaxy's future. 100,000 years spent fearing that our sacrifices, my sacrifice, was in vain. And 16 hours after I finally made contact,
The Floods is out.
this so-called reclaimer decides to blow it all up.
Yeah, very sad.
Not pleased. Just as I finally
Is this so-called reclaimer? Is the monitor only talking about the Master Chief there, or is it talking about all of humanity? We still don't know the true backstory of the Master Chief. Is the Master Chief the only true and descendant of the Forerunners? Is that what makes the Master Chief special? Or is the Master Chief human just like everybody else, but this monitor is referring to the human ship as a reclaimer? I'm not sure. But yeah, this monitor was so excited to have people to talk to again, to find humanity, to find the Covenant, and then 16 hours after they meet, already screwing everything up. What a shame.
discovered that our plan to save the galaxy succeeded. The ancient enemy is unleashed once more. Why these reclaimers refuse to follow protocol is quite mystifying. Destroy my expedition, will they? I shall renew efforts to make contact with the other rings immediately. This covenant may be useful to me, although I don't think they fully understand what they claim to seek. Still, it makes no difference to me what they believe, as long as they do what must be done. I sound like her. Oh, but what I would not give to have even a single company of Prometheans here right now. Oh, they would go.
So he's using the Covenant because they have their whole great journey idea and he wants to use them to help activate the Halo stations. That's what his opinion was in Halo CE. Halo 2, he was also working with the Covenant, but I felt like he wasn't as the Monitor wasn't as intent on destroying everything then. So that's interesting. Let me go back and hear what he just said. It was also saying that he was starting to sound like the Librarian, using people for using people for their own ends and their plans, regardless of what they thought.
Oh, but what I would not give to have even a single company of Prometheans here right now. Oh, they would most certainly restore order with their trademark lethality. Although, that would mean he would have to be here too.
He. So yeah, there is a he as well. In addition to the Librarian, there's also a he, and I don't know who this he is. I don't think the Monitor is directly mentioned who that person is.
Librarian around to temper his rage. Well, these reclaimers might almost prefer the flood.
Okay, so there is a he who is apparently a badass who had to be calmed down by the Librarian and is more vicious than the Flood. Interesting. Probably a ruler or a hero of the Forerunners, I'm assuming. Maybe somebody similar to the Master Chief. We don't know. Here we go. Number 11. And this is only for Halo CE. So we still have Halo 2 to go through. Where this is gonna be a long one. And apparently this is a secret one. I don't know what that means. Secret missing 11th one. I mean, technically aren't all these secrets?
Quite unacceptable.
Unacceptable, huh? Not a good enough way to destroy the Flood? Destroying the station instead of activating it? You find some spores? There's the Covenant. Bonk. Don't beat up the grunt.
Greetings. I am 343 Guilty Spawn. Monitor instant.
Everyone wants to shoot him, of course.
Impertinent creature.
No one wants to listen to what he has to say. Nice laser eye beams, though. Oh! Cut off the hand.
I offer you my life as amends for this dishonor. An oracle of the gods should never suffer such impertinence from vermin like this. I shall cast them all into the mists below for daring such a blasphemy, and—
Oh my. Your people have grown so dramatic in the last 100,000 years. But please, no more deaths are required.
Your people, but interesting, he says your people have grown more dramatic in the last 100,000 years. That means that not only humanity, but the Covenant themselves, the races that make up the Covenant, or at the very least just the elites, the Sangheili, they were also known to the Forerunners. They also existed 100,000 years ago. So that's good. We're getting confirmation that the Covenant are also races that existed way back then.
We will need all the forces we can muster if the Flood escape the destruction of my installation. I must speak to your commander immediately.
this day. The prophets will be pleased that we have rescued an oracle from the human violation of the Holy Temple.
Why do you keep calling it a temple? My installation was a weapon, and one which we needed very, very badly.
But Oracle, I do not understand. We were told the ring was our salvation, a gateway to paradise.
Told? By who?
Exactly. Told. I was about to say that. Told by who's? The prophets. And the prophets just have their weird reasons why they're saying these things.
Anyone who told you that is either a fool or quite mad. That installation was a beautiful
Probably
tool
both.
designed to destroy everything the flood might feed on.
Everything.
Oh, quite everything. And if even one flood spore survived the destruction of my ring, then protocol demands that all nearby sentient life must immediately be destroyed. An outbreak of the flood cannot be allowed to take place.
And I'm certain that one of the spores probably did survive that. So, yeah, things are probably not great.
But I am wasting our time. Surely you know all of this already.
Communications. Shut down all lines to the fleet. We will not notify the prophets of our discovery until I hear everything this oracle has to say.
I will gladly share what I am permitted, but we have little time. What has been unleashed here could destroy everything you have ever known.
On that oracle, we are in agreement.
And that's how the heretic becomes a heretic. That we end up defeating in Halo 2. So the Oracle, the monitor, explains everything to him. Interesting. Okay, so now I'm going to go and find Halo 2's, whatever they were called. The terminals. Alright, on to the Halo 2 terminals. Now, those last ones for Halo CE were extremely informative. Very glad we watched all of those. The last one didn't tell us anything we didn't already know in regards to the heretic. We already knew that he became a heretic because of what the monitor was telling to him. But still very interesting. So now let's see what Halo 2's terminals have to offer. I know we've missed a lot of these as well.
Pursuant to Office of ONI Retrieval and Acquisitions Inquiry of 26 September 2552. The following is a target profile of Thel Vadami, Supreme Commander of the Covenant Fleet of Particular Justice, compiled by Lieutenant Commander Locke.
Is that the Arbiter or is that the Heretic? I don't remember their exact names.
First confirmed contact with Vadami came in 2535 on an unofficial human colony known as the Rubble. After-action reports from civilians, as well as Spartan Units 006, 111, and 120.
Okay, they're talking about Halo Reach there.
Suggest that Vadami,
I think,
was at that point a relatively minor functionary of the Prophet of Regret. Spartan 006 engaged Vadami in combat on the Rubble.
Oh.
Both parties survived the encounter.
Interesting, that I didn't know.
Shortly after 2535, the UNSC first encountered the newly formed Covenant Fleet of Particular Justice, now led by Vadami. Review of early engagements with this fleet show that it quickly grew in size from 5 to nearly 60 ships, as Vadami cut a path through many human systems. ONI Section 3 made multiple attempts to anticipate or even track Vadami's movements, at the cost of a number of operatives' lives. Vadami eluded all such efforts, and he continued his unpredictable and devastating campaign.
Well, when ships can warp everywhere, it doesn't help.
Commanders in the frequency in which he takes a personal role in ground assaults.
Okay, interesting. So that was one of, I think that was one whole terminal cutscene. I don't remember who Vadamine or I hopefully I'm saying that name right. I don't remember who. Yeah, Vadami. I don't remember who exactly that was. I think we're. It seems like we're getting more on this person, so we'll probably figure that out by the end of a few more of these cutscenes. But I'm gonna assume it was either the Arbiter or the Heretic, and most likely it's probably the Arbiter who tried to stop us from, who tried to fight us at the first Halo station in Halo CE. That's what I'm thinking right now.
Camber was a major manufacturing center for UNSC fleet materials with a population of 5.6 million. After discovering Camber's location, Vadami penetrated the early warning perimeter without alerting UNSC forces and began his ground and orbital attacks before most of the planet knew they were in danger. While 17 of his ships bombed key defensive positions, Vadami led a group of elites in a personal assault on UNSC System HQ.
This is still talking about Halo Reach.
One of the first units to engage Vadami was the 3rd Battalion Reserves, who were so unprepared for the arrival of the Covenant forces that Vadami found them unarmed and defenseless.
Not fun.
In an unexpected display of what appears to be honor, Vadami allowed the 3rd to finish gearing up before engaging them in combat. While we've had multiple reports of a strict system of honor and ritual behavior followed by the elites within the Covenant, this is the first recorded example of such honor being shown to human opponents. But even given the chance to defend themselves, 3rd Battalion losses were complete.
So
Vadami
no other
continued his campaign across many human systems.
No other elites were like that?
Culminating in his most devastating blow against
This is
the
weird.
UNSC at Reach.
You try to find a version of this that doesn't have weird ads in the middle. Okay, this one does as well. Whatever. It is what it is. I guess we'll just ignore the fact that it minimizes like this. I don't know. I guess I don't know where this person recorded this from. I think they recorded it from another website and then reposted it on YouTube. But it's fine. We'll deal with it. It is what it is.
Vadami's most recent and damaging blow to the UNSC was the fall of Reach. Oni has still not been able to fully determine how Vadami located the planet, and once again, he caught us completely by surprise when his forces arrived in orbit and on the ground.
No good. Completely destroyed that place.
Vadami is responsible for over 1 billion total casualties and the loss of at least 7 human planets.
1 billion, jeez, what the heck?
His forces have defeated all UNSC counterattacks at the cost of 123 fleet vessels and over 23,000 personnel. And now with Reach lost, Oni and UNSC strategic AI report a 0% confidence that the Navy can stop Vadami through traditional means. In the opinion of this investigator,
a 0% confidence that we can stop them with traditional means. Then what's the not traditional means? It sounds like the Covenant have a gigantic advantage over humanity. Wow.
Vadami is the most dangerous Covenant military asset on the field. It's common knowledge that the Covenant have a significant technological advantage over the UNSC, but are sometimes inflexible in their tactics. This is not the case for Vadami. We cannot predict what he'll do next, but given time, we fear he will dismantle all remaining UNSC strongholds. This agent's recommendation: immediate termination. If humanity wants to survive this war, we cannot do it with Vadami on the field.
Huh. Okay. So in other words, he's one of the main reasons why there's a 0% success rate. At least calculated by the AI. Okay, this is the destruction of that first Halo station. Is that where Vadami met failure and got demoted because of it?
Unacceptable.
Okay, we've seen this one before. At least this part. Is this gonna be different? Let me skip forward just a little bit.
Why do you keep calling it a temple? My installation was...
Yeah, we've already seen this one.
But we have
Why is this one in the Halo 2
What has been
version?
unleashed-
Weird. Okay, I don't know why that one was there. We already saw that one.
Your actions do not make sense. Proper protocol for a flood outbreak is to establish immediate infection reporting. Communications must be maintained with all local forces in order to track any spread of the parasite.
There are no local forces, Oracle. For now, all you have is me.
But I tracked multiple ships in orbit, including some remaining human presence. In light of the danger posed by the flood, surely you can set aside this disagreement with the humans and...
Anything still alive in orbit is our enemy. The humans have very good cause to kill us on sight, and the knowledge you've shared with me casts doubt on the entire purpose of our covenant. If any of our ships remain above us, they are not the help you seek.
But why would they not provide assistance? Because of this talk of prophecies and journeys? I learned a small amount about your covenant before that reclaimer blew up my installation, but my understanding is incomplete. The AI I encountered on board one of your ships was less than forthcoming.
Okay, so that was the AI on the ship.
No, Oracle, is that thousands of years ago, at the founding of our great covenant, a bargain was struck between the prophets and the elites. A bargain which I fear will be the end of us.
A bargain was struck between the prophets and the elites. Okay, so I don't know the they didn't they didn't give me any of the details on that, but let me listen to that again.
Parasite.
There are no local forces.
So they're just talking about how they can't collaborate with this heretic can't collaborate with the humans. They can't collaborate with the other covenant because of the agreement that they made between the prophets and the elites, and because of the great journey and how everyone believes in that. And they referred to the Master Chief as the reclaimer again. And then, so apparently this this construct is the Covenant's AI. Is it just the AI of that particular Covenant ship, or is it the AI of the mothership of the Covenant, or is it something else?
What you need to know, Oracle, is that thousands of years ago, at the founding of our great covenant, a bargain was struck between the prophets and the elites.
Okay, a bargain was struck between the prophets and the elite.
A bargain which I fear will be the end of us.
Okay, it doesn't give us any details on that though. What I really need is a little bit more information on that, what that deal was. Alright, there's the big Covenant mothership.
Regarding the history of the Covenant and its glorious founding species, the San Shayum.
Now, what interests me is, how does this city survive? The Covenant are always fighting with each other. They don't seem like a group that really works well together. How is this city not blowing itself up with the amount of conflict that the Covenant has internally? I get that they have a greater enemy that they can unite against, which is humanity, but they do not seem to work well together. So I'm surprised that the Covenant can even have big cities like this.
Regarding the history of the Covenant and its glorious founding species, the San Shayum and Sanghili.
San Shayum and Sanghili. So the Sanghili are the elites. The San Shayum, I assume, are the prophets. Let me hear that again so I can try to remember how to say that.
Regarding the history of the Covenant and its glorious founding species, the San Shayum and
San Shayum and
Sanghili
Sanghili.
deeds would not be sufficient without a word on the Arbiter. Not the consignment of shame that it is currently, but what came before. The legendary warriors of Sanghili past.
Sanghili. But it's not Sanghili, it's Sanghili.
before the Covenant, the Sangheili ruled their world with pride and vigilance, surviving the perils of both land
I think we've seen this
and
one.
sea. These
Very
were the
neat.
arbiters of old, part king, part judge, warrior rulers, unlike any of which would follow. When we arrived on their frontier world of Ulgathon, the cost of life was severe. Led by a mighty arbiter, the Sangheili resisted our entreatment with ruthless force, leading to decades of war. We would eventually triumph, of course. And when we did, we would not ignore the mantle of the Arbiter.
But why? Well,
Like all things, we would bend the same...
I said why, but I know why. It's so that they can keep control over them by making some of them arbiters.
Healy to our own ends. The Arbiters would become the very will of the Prophets.
Yeah, so they took the idea of the arbiter and they made it work for them, basically. They took their strength and they wanted to preserve their strength and use it for them. So this is the Sangheili were ultimately defeated, though, which is unfortunate for them. They seem like they seem to have better, more amiable personalities than the prophets, to be honest. The Sang Shayum. The Sangheili were kind of like they were sort of more, they were more like Spartans than the Spartans in Halo Reach.
Our holy arrangement put the prophets in charge of religion and technology. The elites led our military forces to convert new species and
Okay, so religion and technology were the purview of the prophets, and then the Sangheili took the control of the military. So that was their deal.
find relics such as your halo.
And these relics you sought, the San Shayum, your prophets, told you that they would lead you on this great journey?
Yes, transcendence, eternal life. Their promises were endless. We gave up our old ways to follow the prophet's lead on the great journey.
Well, you had
Gave
to.
up
You
all of
were
our history,
taken over.
all of our traditions.
Not all of your traditions, it seems. This arbiter you mentioned, hasn't that always been a position of power for your species?
Power?
Yeah. So I think that's probably the San Shayum. That's probably their biggest mistake, was leaving the title of arbiter and the position of arbiter to exist. It served their interests in that it allowed them to, make somebody an arbiter to control them, but it also is probably going to work against them if an arbiter turns against the prophets and the military goes against the whole military ends up rising up and going against them. That could be a real big problem. And when it comes to overthrowing the government, the military, if somebody has control over the military, obviously that makes things a lot easier to stage a coup or something like that. So that I can definitely see that happening in Halo 3 or on.
It was long ago. An arbiter was once the pinnacle of our people, leader of the clans, and master of the battlefield. But then, an arbiter committed heresy, and an example was made of him.
Heresy?
He challenged the word of the prophets, challenged and lost. So the title of arbiter became a badge of shame for our...
Who's that on the right? That's obviously a Sangheili, but who is that?
most spectacularly
Is that a is that I don't know who that would be.
warriors.
They've got the same hands, so I think it's also a Sangheili. But is that maybe an arbiter of the past? Is this supposed to be symbolic?
Yes, they were accomplished manipulators. Back before the firing of the array.
I mean, it would make sense if it was symbolic, because the arbiters of the past got defeated by the Sengshayum, and that he got defeated as well. Everybody who tried to stand up to them ended up getting defeated. So I can see why they would put an image like that in there.
Yes, they were accomplished manipulators. Back before the firing of the array. I see at least that hasn't changed.
Manipulators.
They were manipulators even before the firing of the array. So even during the age of the Forerunners, they were still manipulating people. They were still very very tricky. Yeah, I definitely like the Sangheili a lot more than the Sangshayum. They are definitely more likable, even if they are more violent. Well,
What?
more outwardly violent.
And before? Before when?
I will explain later. Right now, I want you to tell me everything you can of these arbiters.
Our holy city was not always as it is, nor was the Covenant. At one time, it was only Sanshayum and Sangheili. But as we grew,
Yep, and then
and
they
new
converted
species were
everybody.
added to our number, radical steps had to be taken. Our first encounter with the Nekozilla was an effort in futility. The blasphemous creatures had devoured a Forerunner orbital, shattering its remains into 1 trillion pieces.
They devoured a Forerunner orbital? What's a Forerunner orbital?
Became the rings of Te. As no conventional methods could purge the rings of their infestation, we sent one of our most faithful, an arbiter. For a full year, this arbiter ventured across the surface of one of their moons, learning both their strengths and their weaknesses. It was there that we discovered the Nekozill's secret.
Okay, I'm not going to try to remember that name. I think the
Although some of their
Sangheili and
kind
the...
rightly bore the blame for the orbital's desecration, others had only devoured around the Forerunner materials. And with reasoning and much labor,
Huh.
these could be used to serve the Covenant.
Whoa, those are weird.
And by
We've never
these
seen that
means,
before.
The great arbiter had given us one of our most sought-after treasures. Access to innumerable processing pathways of the mighty Forerunner Dreadnought, and to the many secrets it held.
Wait, what? So they took these worms and they put them into a computer? What's going on here? Let me. I'm gonna have to listen to that again. That was a really weird and interesting cutscene. I thought that when they were going to this moon to go find whatever was happening here, I thought this was maybe a story of them subduing one of their other Covenant races, like the Jackals or the Grunts, whatever the actual name for them is. I thought that's what this was going to be, but it turns out they're subduing these worms, finds their strengths and their weaknesses, and then they use them for some sort of computer? What's going on here?
Had only devoured around the Forerunner materials. And with reasoning and much labor, these could be used to serve the Covenant. And by these means, the great arbiter had given us one of our most sought-after treasures, access to innumerable processing pathways of the mighty Forerunner Dreadnought, and
Processing pathways of the Dreadnought. Is this the consciousness or the construct that the monitor was talking to? Some sort of some sort of computer system that's being controlled by a worm intelligence? Maybe? I have no idea.
To the many secrets it held.
Huh. Weird. I don't know what to make of that one. I feel like we're missing some information there.
It is most unusual
to connect
that
all the
in
dots.
all the exploits of these arbiters, you never mention their role in choosing their missions of redemption.
There is no role, Oracle. Once one of our commanders becomes an arbiter, he belongs to the hierarchs.
These hierarchs, they are the same
Well, technically, you all already belong to the hierarchs. So, I mean, does it really make that much big of a difference either way? They're still a defeated race.
There is no role, Oracle. Once one of our commanders becomes an arbiter, he belongs to the hierarchs.
These hierarchs, they are the same high prophets who control all the holy relics you collect from my time?
The same.
And they use these relics to build your new weapons and bring you the word of your gods?
It has always been so.
Okay, so this is why... So it just explained why the Covenant has better technology than the humans. It's not because the Covenant are super smart, or they work really well together, and, you know, they're able to make lots of technological discoveries, or they stole... It's because they stole technology from the Forerunners. That's why they have so much technology. That's why they're able to defeat humanity so easily, probably. So it makes sense now. I was wondering, why do the Covenant have such advanced technology when they're so belligerent and they just don't seem like people who should be able to invent stuff like that. But it's because of this. It's because they are so interested in Forerunner stuff that they've just adapted a lot of the killing technology for their own needs.
Interesting. Am I a holy relic?
I do not understand.
Because I am certainly not a god. I am a tool, as is this mining platform you stand upon, as was the installation that once orbited the planet. The Forerunner's technology is lasting and indeed quite powerful, but I'm quite certain they would have told me if I was infused with some kind of divine power. I suspect some of your prophets may have been quite aware of how much divine inspiration tools such as myself could provide. And you never questioned these proclamations. Even your mightiest warriors, these arbiters, never questioned?
Yeah, they ain't the smartest.
Questioning was what brought shame to the word arbiter long ago, Oracle.
You talking about that arbiter that tried to challenge the prophets and then died? Is that what he's talking about? But, I mean, did he really bring shame just by dying in battle to them? I'm not so sure.
How disappointing.
I fear now that there are many questions we should have been asking for a long, long time.
I would be more than happy to answer any such questions, but I have a few more for you. Continue your tale of these arbiters.
Seems like a lot of these cutscenes are really just the arbiter, the heretic and the monitor talking back and forth, telling stories. That's how all these come to be. This is a really cool shot. I really wish we could... I really hope that we go to that city directly in one of these Halo games and are able to fight through it a little bit. I know we did a little bit, but not really. Not in the same way that it shows in these cutscenes.
Whereas most species were grafted into the Covenant by faith or mutual beneficence, the Ungoi were not such.
Ungoi.
Their kind was brought into the fold by force, and it was by force that they were held captive.
Are those the grunts?
Their world had no prayer against our might and majesty, and their peoples were quickly laid low, many of them brought into subjugation.
Just went and grabbed some slaves. Yep, they're the grunts.
Yet while some species would perish under such pressure, others rise to the occasion, taking arms if need be, fighting back. Such it was for the Ungoi when their feud with the Kigyar led to rebellion. An effort by the Kigyar to sterilize the Ungoi population was met with stiff resistance, and for a time, the holy city was thrown into chaos.
Yeah, that's what I would expect. Exactly. So the Ungoi and I forget what the other ones were, the Jackals. So the Grunts and the Jackals, they were fighting. They had conflict with each other, which is exactly what I would have expected. And they're all put in this one city, and then suddenly one of them wants to sterilize and kill all of the other one. That's exactly what I would have expected. So let's see how this all plays out. It sounds like the Grunts had a strong resistance, but that's gonna mess up the city quite a bit.
Once fully provoked, the Ungoi were merciless in their violence, lashing out at all species. Their large numbers and their tenacious volatility made them a suitable challenge, even for the elites. And yet again, we turned to an art.
See, this is how I would expect the city to look like, to look all the time, just constantly exploding with the amount of violence that all these different warring races have against each other.
And with a ferocity unparalleled since the beginning of the Covenant, the Ungoi world would be reduced to glass.
Oof.
Those within the holy city would be forced to watch, unable to stop what could have been the very end of their kind. The Ungoi rebellion was brought to an end by the Arbiter's hand. Their world was not completely lost, and those who survived within high charity found some measure of mercy. They had proven their worth in combat, and would now serve alongside the Sangheili in battle.
Interesting that they made up so peacefully though there at the end. I have a feeling that that's a little bit far-fetched that after getting most of their planet destroyed to try to get them to calm down, that would actually get them to calm down and not to go even more insane and suicide bomb everywhere, as those Grunts certainly love to do with their grenades. So that's a bit interesting that they would gain peace after that instead of just continuing to go berserk. But I guess it worked, and that's how the Grunts came to become part of the Covenant. Interesting. I'm really glad we're getting backstory on all these different things. This really helps understand how the Covenant does things, how they came to be, how their society even manages to work in the first place.
I'm starting to fear that you're not very smart.
Mind your tongue,
Yep.
Oracle.
Oh, I mean no offense. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about your species. How long have these prophets been anointing arbiters?
Since the fall of Falchavami, the first disgraced arbiter, roughly 400 years ago.
Incredible! And in all this time, it never occurred to you how convenient it was that your prophets were able to find a powerful, capable leader among your people, who happened to suddenly commit a terrible blasphemy every time the power structure of your covenant was threatened.
I do not understand.
You do little to dissuade my fears.
Then teach me.
Looking back at the record of the arbiters you've discussed, was it not surprising to anyone that those chosen to become arbiter were more than simple warriors?
How so?
Each of them had significant political influence among your people. In some cases, that influence was already being used to question the decisions of your hierarchs.
Yep, but then they
In
just
fact,
use the
that very
title of
question
arbiter to
often
disgrace
gave
them.
rise to the charges of heresy that so neatly removed the challenger from the hierarch's concern.
Yep.
And once they were
Used as a
branded
tool.
arbiter,
They promptly and quite cheerfully ran to meet their deaths.
all our lives we looked down at the path, put our feet where the prophets tell us. All our lives spent convincing ourselves of the truth of our covenant. Could all of it truly have been wasted?
Let's hope not all of
I mean, you should already realize, since it's not like the hierarchs, the prophets, the Sengshayum, it's not like they hid the history from, or changed the history that happened in the past. This heretic already seems to be fully aware of the history that happened and where his race came from and what happened to the arbiters and all of this stuff. He already has all the information, so it's not like they were kept in the dark. So I agree with the monitor here. It seems like they're really, really dumb if they actually have access to all this information and history and are not coming to these conclusions. So it really shouldn't be much of a surprise to him the truth of what the prophets are doing, what the hierarchs are trying to get out of them, why they're making people arbiters, and that they don't have their best interests in mind. That should already be clear if the truth of the history is not being hidden from them. And in fact, I'm actually kind of surprised that the truth of the history is not being hidden from these various races. That's something that I would expect to happen, because that's something that happens in real life. That history ends up getting hidden or rewritten in order to hide unfortunate truths and things like that.
it, for we have a great deal of work to do. The flood is still out there, so I require a cooperative reclaimer to enact proper containment procedures. But your covenants keep trying to kill all the reclaimers I can find. All this bickering is quite a deadly waste of time. Right now, the most important question we can ask is this: who could break...
The Covenant keeps trying to kill all the reclaimers I try to find. So, does that mean humanity was known as the Reclaimers way back in the day? Was that their role? Or...
It's quite a deadly waste of time. Right now, the most important question we can ask is this: who could break this hold the prophets have over you?
That would be the Arbiter, and that would be the Master Chief. Mainly the Arbiter.
The history of the Arbiter is one of both legend and infamy. Their name has been corrupted by great shame, though the contemporary is perhaps the most confounding of all.
The contemporary
Vladimir was born of noble blood,
the
legendary House of Vada. His family's renown demanded great expectations for his military career.
Interesting that they still have nobility, or the concept of it in their defeated race, in their current existence.
One of the youngest to achieve the status of shipmaster, and one of the youngest to gain the rate of supreme commander. In our campaign against the humans, few have risen to renown as Vladimir. World after human world, all laid low for the sake of the great journey. But then came Halo. Shame unto shame. He failed his greatest charge, and the sacred ring was desecrated. By such disgrace, Vladimir became the Arbiter.
So that is the Arbiter that we
mere
play
scribe,
as.
I do not challenge the word of the hierarchs, but I would be remiss not to voice concern. This Sangheili should have been put down, publicly slain as an example to all of our prayerful expediency.
Because he's too strong. He's a threat. So that's interesting. Okay, so we finally got confirmation about what I was talking about at the beginning of these Halo 2 anniversary terminal cutscene things. That this Velvadimir guy is the Arbiter that we were playing as. So it's interesting that the person we were playing as was somebody who's killed or who has been responsible for the deaths of over 1 billion humans. That's a death toll and amount of destruction and sadness and pain that I would not have expected from a person that we get to play as one of the main characters in the game. So I think that's really cool that we got to play as someone who's so renowned and who's someone who's done so much destruction and has caused so many problems for humanity. Normally, you wouldn't expect to be able to play as a character like that, or get backstory or too much backstory or too much story focus on. Well, I mean, you'd get focus on that, but only as a villain, and normally that would be all that it is. So it's interesting that we got more than that in Halo 2, and that just makes me like Halo 2 even more. And Halo 2 is already, I think, my favorite Halo game so far. So I really like that. I really like that we're getting more of this, and that we're getting a lot of information on who the Arbiter was, and sounds like he was very influential, very powerful. And I'm interested to see where things go with Halo 3 now with the Arbiter. I imagine that what's going to end up happening, here's my theory, is that the Arbiter is going to become the new heretic. He's going to stage more of a resistance with the entire Sangheili. He's going to lead the whole Sangheili against the prophets and their whole covenant, and the humans and the Sangheili will make an alliance and then go and fight the rest of the covenant together. That sounds like the only way that humanity has a chance to even survive. That's the reason why I say that. If humanity's planets are getting destroyed one by one by one by one, I think just taking the Arbiter out of the equation, even if the Arbiter decided, okay, I'm not going to fight the humans anymore, we're going to go off and do our own thing, that would not be enough. That would not be enough for humanity to survive here. I think that humanity really does need the Sangheili in order it really needs them to cooperate with them in order for humanity to even have a chance of survival. Which is weird, though, since the Sangheili have already killed so many humans. To even think of cooperating with them is already insane at this point. Just like how the Grunts cooperating peacefully now with the Covenant is, to me, already insane that they continue to help them when they destroyed their whole planet, almost. A lot of crazy stuff here. A lot of crazy information here. But yeah, let's continue on.
With the discovery of a second ring and the changing of the guard, all things are in jeopardy. Will this Arbiter remain loyal?
No, he will not.
Or will he stand with his people as they are abolished by our newfound might? I would never openly challenge the divine proclamations of a hierarch. But this Arbiter is a risk I would not have tolerated. And I now fear that
it's a big mistake.
Covenant are numbered.
Yeah, interesting. So Vadami, I think I agree with the prophet there, the hierarch right there. Well, actually, he wasn't a hierarch. I think the hierarchs are the leaders of the Song Shai They're the leaders of the entire covenant, and that particular Song Shai was not one of them. But I agree with whatever one that was. Definitely a big mistake on the part of the hierarchs to allow such a powerful character to exist and have so much control.
The only one I would trust with this information is probably dead right now. He was commander.
Now, this is one we've seen before as well. He's talking about the Arbiter.
Was his name.
But after
hearing you tell of the destruction of the ring, I cannot believe that he still lives. His orders were to secure the ring, to prepare it for the arrival of the hierarchs. Vadami never fails in his duties.
But he ran up against the Master Chief.
If the
A
ring
reclaimer.
was no more, then Vadami must be dead.
Duty can indeed be a dangerous virtue. But even if he did live, wouldn't this sense of duty make him quite unlikely to set aside his allegiance to the prophets?
Perhaps not. And he would never betray our people. No, if we were able to just speak to him, explain everything you have told me. But no, these are futile hopes. If he did live, and if he was returned to the High Prophets, they would most certainly punish him for the destruction of the ring. In fact, he would be the exact kind of leader the hierarchs would make arbiter. They would need someone to blame for the loss of the ring. His influence within the fleet grew with every one of his victories over the humans.
And if he did become arbiter?
Then he would be lost to our cause. Without the knowledge you've shared with me, he would obey the prophets without question.
And that's what he did for quite a
I
while.
doubt he would even respond to his former name. I don't know what it would take to overcome, but as you say, we don't have time to ask such questions, and Vadami is almost certainly dead.
If all your hopes rest on him, then I fear for the future of this galaxy.
As do I, Oracle. As do I. But I will begin our fight. Make others aware of the lies the prophets whisper in our ears. And soon, we will find more who will take up our cause.
Yep. And we see all that happen in Halo 2. Human colony of Meridian. 2551. So this is a destroyed colony. Looks like. So it'd be more accurate to say former human colony.
Activate the Kindler. Make haste. We have little time.
Nice. Good mapping tool.
It has been found, Commander.
Very well. Mark the coordinates and proceed with caution.
What has been found? The index?
And to think, it has been under their noses all this time.
Humans are foul animals. They lack the intellect and the purity to discern the ways of gods. Prepare the luminary for retrieval. The Hierarch will reward us for our devotion.
What do they find there?
Well done, Commander. Do you know what you found?
A luminary hierarch. A divine instrument.
A
It
luminary.
is more than that, Commander. This is the one spoken of in the prophecies. It lights the sacred path.
Wait, is that a monitor?
Stewards, good news, I pray.
It was not easy, Blessed One. The luminary was not forthcoming with the holy words, but our hope proved true.
The sacred rings.
Ah,
And not Halo alone,
a map of where all the rings are.
also told of this. The final home of the Forerunners, and the creation of the sacred rings.
Oh, so that's what. So we've seen that structure before in other cutscenes. So that's the Forerunner's home, and it can is that where you have to go to activate all of the rings at once? Is that what I'm understanding?
The Ark.
The Ark.
By the gods, it is glorious. The stories were true. Where did the gods hide such a treasure?
It lies far beyond the borders of our galaxy, accessible only by way of portal. The one portal the luminary spoke of was here. The Forerunners called it Erde Tyrene.
Our
Earth?
calling is clear. We must go there at once. We will take the ships in our command and go to this world immediately.
So that's why they went to Earth.
Erde Tyrene. Take heed, brothers.
And they didn't know that humanity was there.
The culmination of our covenant's holy quest. Hold fast. The great journey
Okay, so that explains a few things. Okay, so the Covenant went to Earth to... Okay, and that's it. The Covenant went to Earth in order to find a portal to the Forerunner's main ship. Huh. And I assume if they go there, they'll be able to activate all the Halo stations at once. So that was another really interesting one. One thing that I completely did not know is that they apparently found another monitor, and the humans had it. That's really weird. I didn't know that the humans, the places the monitors are, their monitors are all at Halo stations, right? So the humans would have had to have found a different Halo station before to uncover that monitor, unless maybe the monitor got really bored, like the monitor we're familiar with what did, and maybe started wandering places. And it seems like this monitor is kind of broken. They said it wasn't coming with the holy words, so maybe it wasn't very talkative, maybe it was broken. A whole bunch of stuff could have happened, but it's really interesting that they found another monitor out there. This one doesn't seem like it's the one that went crazy, because I would expect the one that went crazy from the 5th Halo station to be really really talkative, really insane. But this one, I think, maybe just broke down. All of that, though, really fascinating stuff. I'm glad I've watched all of these. Gave me a lot of backstory on the Covenant, which I loved. The information on the Sankili and the Sangshayum and the Grunts and the Jackals helps give some information on what happens in their city. I was right that it's all very violent and not very stable. It told us where all their Covenant's weaponry comes from. It told us a lot about the Arbiters, a lot about what happened before in the rest of the war between humans and the Covenant. It told us a lot of stuff. There's a lot to process there. I'm sure that I'm going to end up forgetting some of it, unfortunately, because there's just so much. But I'm going to try to remember as much of that as I possibly can, because a lot of it was very, very interesting. Now, if there are any more of these terminal cutscenes that I've missed, be sure to let me know in the comments, and I'm sure there are going to be plenty of comments that will be trying to explain to me things that I may have misunderstood. But please do not confirm or deny any of my crazy theories. They're just theories, and I'd like this to stay a blind Let's Play, so you don't need to tell me if I'm right or wrong about things, and definitely don't tell me any information that's coming up in any of the later Halo games, because that I'll just figure out on my own. But if you have any information like backstory knowledge that's from maybe books or other material that I wouldn't know just by playing the game, that's perfectly alright to put that in the comments. I'll be happy to read that and gain a little bit more knowledge on the Covenant or any of the lore, because that's all very interesting to me. Stuff like that just helps me get more immersed into the game and the game's story, and I've really been loving the story of especially Halo 2 at the moment. So now that I'm done with all this, I'm gonna probably go directly into Halo 3. We're gonna see where that goes. That's gonna be interesting. Halo 2 left off at a strange spot, so I'm excited to continue on and see what happens next. So, hope you enjoyed all of that. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.